The Pittsburgh Steelers had a terrific season last season. Not at all. They finish 10-7. Again, lose in the first playoff game. Their big move of the offseason, trading for DK Metcalf with Seattle. They add him by trading away their second-round pick in the draft. They also add Bulldog legend Darius Slay from the Super Bowl winning Philadelphia Eagles. They went to the draft. They come up to pick 21. Shedeur Sanders hasn't been drafted. And they decide to take Derek Harmon instead of Shedeur Sanders. They're up again, and they take Caleb Johnson instead of Shedeur Sanders. And then they're up again, and they take Jack Sawyer instead of Shedeur Sanders. And they finally take Will Howard late in the draft. And so their decision was Aaron Rodgers is going to be the quarterback this season. He signs just a few weeks ago. Aaron Rodgers is now the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers this season. And I just want to start immediately. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I can tell you, we know Steelers fans, it doesn't make any sense to them either. I don't understand why you wouldn't go ahead and take, and it's part me being a Shedeur Sanders fan, but why not take the second best quarterback in that draft right there at pick 21 instead of taking Aaron Rodgers, finishing 9-8 inevitably this season, more than likely, losing in the first round of the playoffs, more than likely, or missing, and then taking the fifth best quarterback in next year's class, which, yeah, next year's class might be a great class where the fifth best quarterback is as good as Shedeur, but why not? I mean, if you want, take Shedeur right now or do nothing and tank this season and have your trust in Mike Tomlin. Start Will Howard if you wanted to.
Start your whatever round
Start
pick.
Mason Rudolph if you wanted to.
Sixth round pick Will Howard.
And
start Skylar Thompson.
Be terrible this season and then go into the next year's draft and be able to select one of the cream of the crop quarterbacks for next year's class. And that is, this was the opportunity to do it because the Steelers, credit to Mike Tomlin, have been good enough through all of these seasons to where they have never been inside the top 10 for a draft pick, so they've never had a chance to take one of the best quarterbacks in the draft. And again, they just kind of make a questionable decision. Now it becomes Super Bowl or bust for a team that is not good enough to be Super Bowl or bust because this is going to be Aaron Rodgers' last season, and he's not the long-term option in Pittsburgh. And so now you're going to get like Carson Beck at pick 23 next season, and then here we go. Pittsburgh Steelers aren't going to be good again. It won't be any different than when they selected Kenny Pickett. At least that's how it feels right now. The other questions for the Pittsburgh Steelers is TJ Watt, when is he going to get his damn extension? This guy deserves to be paid more than anyone in the league right now that hasn't been paid yet, and he still hasn't been paid, and that's a huge question for a guy who's been as elite as he has been and has carried this Pittsburgh Steelers defense. He is not signed to an extension. My next thing I want to get into is I want to get into a take partially. The Mike Tomlin of these last 7 seasons has reminded me of a 7-season stretch from another head coach from the AFC North. And I want to start by saying, yes, Mike Tomlin has won 2 Super Bowls. Yes, he's been great. Yes, he's never had a losing season. But I think it's partially because he hasn't had the losing season yet. And my comparison is Marvin Lewis. Marvin Lewis in a 7-year span, if you can pull that up. 2009, they lose in the wild card. And then Carson Palmer gets hurt. They go 4-12. Andy Dalton comes in to play quarterback. And 5 straight years, they lose in the wild card round. Their first playoff game. They never win a playoff game. It feels no different to the 7 seasons we've seen with Mike Tomlin. These past 7 seasons, 2018, 2019, they're 9-6, 8-8, don't make the playoffs. 2020 and 2021, lose in the wild card round. And then the past 2 seasons, they've lost again in the wild card round. And for me, the job security is there because, yes, he's won 2 Super Bowls, and he deserves every right for that. And even if
you keep saying, I'm pretty sure it's 1 Super Bowl. I like you said it twice now.
Sorry.
Which is why I'm trying.
No, he's won 2.
He won it.
Ben Roethlisberger won.
He won it in 08.
He was in the other head Was he not the other head coach then?
No, he won it in 08 and then lost to his current
Okay.
quarterback, Aaron Rodgers.
He's won a Super
Yes,
Bowl.
sorry. Continue.
And, like, I understand, like, that with that, it comes a ton of job security. And if he was fired, he would be the hottest coach on the market immediately, and deservedly so. But it feels like when are we going to allow this team to, like, get to that point? Because it feels like the only way you can fire Mike Tomlin is if he were to just play terrible. Not play terrible, but coach terrible, and the team is terrible, and the team wins 5 games. But if he's so damn good that he's never going to do that, then you're going to continue to hold yourself hostage because you're never going to answer the quarterback situation, and therefore you're never going to be good enough to compete in the AFC. Think of the AFC quarterbacks right now. Mahomes, Lamar, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, C.J. Stroud. Like, it's elite quarterbacks, and you need elite quarterback play to reach the Super Bowl. That's the reason Mahomes keeps returning to the Super Bowl. That's the only reason Joe Burrow made the Super Bowl that one year, is because he outplayed Mahomes. Like, you're going to need that for Pittsburgh if you're ever going to make the Super Bowl again. And you can't win the Super Bowl if you don't make the damn Super Bowl. So I just bring it up as I'm not saying Mike Tomlin is Marvin Lewis, but it feels that way where it's like, why are we not having the same kind of discourse over Mike Tomlin and the Steelers that we had with that Bengals team when they lost 5 playoff games in a row? Because there was a ton of outrage, and it felt like every single season it was, why aren't we getting rid of this guy? And why do we keep bringing back Marvin Lewis? And why do we keep putting ourselves through this pain where, yeah, we had a good regular season, but we can't get it done in the damn postseason? It feels, and from a comparison way, it's really no different. The only difference is Mike Tomlin won a Super Bowl ages ago. And, Marvin Lewis never did. And Marvin Lewis had losing seasons, sure. But I don't think, Mike Tomlin's been given the opportunity to have a losing season yet. And I think he's due at some point. You can't keep finishing 9-8.
I'll argue against that because I think one of the reasons is that Lewis coached in a different era of what the quarterbacks across the league looked like. And so for his career, he had Andy Dalton, and before that, he had Carson Palmer. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Carson Palmer was a good quarterback, right, at Cincinnati?
Great.
Yes. And so I think that at the time, Lewis had 2 of, like, the best quarterbacks in the NFL at his disposal and was unable to win a Super Bowl. And then, whereas Tomlin, when he had Ben Roethlisberger at his best, was able to win a Super Bowl, and then since then has not had a good quarterback situation. So he's had Russell Wilson, he's had Justin Fields, he's had Kenny Pickett, he's had Mason Rudolph, he's had Duck Hodges. And so Lewis was kind of in this weird situation of Andy Dalton in the early 2010s he was a above average quarterback, because the difference between now and then is that quarterbacks now are better. Like, the 20th best quarterback now would probably be a top 10 quarterback of, like,
Talent wise, sure.
Talent wise, like the late 2000s or late 2010s. And so it's a different comparison because Marvin Lewis was at the most important position in the NFL, had Andy Dalton, Carson Palmer, and so he was held to different expectations. And now we kind of forget that because we're like, oh, it's Andy Dalton. The last time Andy Dalton played football was at the Carolina Panthers, and he got benched for Bryce Young. Well, he took over Bryce Young and then got benched for Bryce Young. And then Carson Palmer, we remember at the Arizona Cardinals, and he just wasn't like that's what we remember. And so I think that's why it's different, is because they had different resources available to them, and they also coached in different eras. I mean, there was some overlap, but they coached for somewhat at the same time. But we're in a different era now where not having a top 6 quarterback puts you at a huge disadvantage. And Tomlin hasn't had a top 6 quarterback since 2015.
I think my pushback on that is, and I don't think I'm in the minority here, because I think I'm speaking almost to a Steelers fan perspective, not being a Steelers fan of, I get it, like, Tomlin's great because he's getting these teams to winning records and he's making the postseason consistently, and we all agree with that. But it's like, when do you make the choice to say that's not enough? Like, when do you, like, this was the damn opportunity to tank. This was the season to do it. And they decided in-house that they weren't going to do that they were going to go for mediocre quarterback play and be a mediocre team again this season with Aaron Rodgers. And so you can say, like, oh, Mike Tomlin's never had the good quarterback. Well, the front office and the team has never gotten the chance to even do that. And I don't think they ever will, because if they keep telling Mike Tomlin to come into the season and win games, then they're never going to win games.
Well,
so for me, it is get rid of him, fire him, move on, and then you have the opportunity to potentially go and get a new quarterback because you suck for a season, and then you can get a quarterback. But Mike Tomlin, I think he's too good, to his credit, to ever be in a spot where they're going to be able to select a quarterback unless they find a diamond in the rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the disconnect there is, I mean, I don't know what the discourse is in the front office and with the owner. But I wonder if the thing of this season, in particular with signing Aaron Rodgers, right, is like they don't feel like their job security is good enough in terms of like what the owner wants to happen to withstand a season where they tank and they're legitimately bad, because then they may be out the door before they can ever reap the benefits of drafting a good quarterback and actually having a good quarterback. I don't know if that makes sense. Like I don't know what the owner is telling them, right? Or because the owner may just be like, "Nah, like I want to sign Aaron Rodgers. I want to go out there and win games." And I mean, sports owners are some of the most delusional people in the world.
True.
And so I don't know if that's the reason behind the Aaron Rodgers pickup and behind their like just dogged determination to have winning season after winning season. So
I think it's just a fear and a delusion of making the postseason is that means you're good and that means you're on the right track. But that is not how the NFL works. Like, the NFL is a postseason success league. Like, you are what you are in the postseason if you are winning. Like, if you're not winning in the postseason, you're terrible.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson, 3-5 in the postseason. We view him differently than other quarterbacks in the league, and we view his legacy differently, even with the 2 MVPs differently, because he hasn't been good enough in the postseason. And Jalen Hurts is now going to be held to a higher regard because he's won a Super Bowl. So I just feel like he's going to, but it's the only.
yeah, I know he's going to.
It sucks, but he's going to. Like, there's no other way around it. For Pittsburgh, it's just a delusion, and the fan base feels this way. I know it because I lived with a damn Steelers fan, and one of my best friends growing up was a Steelers fan, and I understand their anger. And I watched the Pat McAfee show with one half of the Hammer, Cowboys Tone Diggs. He's a big Steelers fan, and he gives his opinion on it as well. And they're fed up now with being a playoff team, and that's it. And the front office doesn't see that for whatever reason. So they can, for me, it's just like that's the solution was tank this season. They decided not to do that. So now the solution is fire Mike Tomlin, because what else are you going to do? You're never going to be able to put yourself in a spot where you can select a quarterback. And we've seen that with teams. Like, you can rebuild. You can do that. You can be bad for 2 years and then get C.J. Stroud and make the postseason 2 years in a row. You can be bad for many years, get Jaden Daniels, and now you're in the conference championship. Like, that is how the league is, like, building, and that's how to get good, is to be bad. And that's why, like, as a Saints fan, like, I was celebrating a tanking last season, and I hope we're bad again this year, because
It's going to be worse.
I hope we're able to build. We're able to get the draft picks and build through the draft. The Detroit Lions were terrible for many years.
Yeah.
All the draft picks. Now they're really damn good. So I
think the other side of that is having a coach who can handle the talent, right? So the Cleveland Browns assembled one of the best rosters in the NFL in like 2018, 2019. It was a rookie quarterback, but you had a good wide receiver core, Odell Beckham Jr., Jarvis Landry. You got Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt at running back. On the defense, you've got Denzel Ward, Myles Garrett. I can't remember who all. They had just this really loaded roster, and the coach was Freddie Kitchens. and it was bad. I mean, it was bad. And then you had I just had another example, and Dallas Cowboys. I mean, people complained about Mike McCarthy for years as the Cowboys head coach because they had Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup, and they had DeMarcus Lawrence and then Micah Parsons. And so, I mean, McCarthy was just wasting this talent. And so I think there's the other side where it's like it's kind of risky to fire a coach who has consistently won with nothing so that you can get talent because you want to be bad. Because you don't know that the next coach you bring in, okay, cool, you get to draft 3rd overall, you get your quarterback, but can your coach actually do anything with that talent? I think that's the flip side is like finding a good head coach is not just like you just pick one and he's going to be good because it's not that hard to be a head coach. I mean, we've seen guys, the head of Vrabel at Tennessee, they were the number 1 overall seed in the AFC, and then 2 years later, he was fired because he just couldn't. He was not very good at being a head coach. I think he'll get another chance. This is not a diss at Vrabel. I think he is a decent head coach and should get another opportunity. But like being a head coach and finding a good head coach and then making it work and click with a talented roster is not easy. And so there is a trade-off of saying, well, let's tank, let's fire head coach and let's be bad because then we'll be good. There's no guarantee that being bad does not mean you're going to be good. Being bad could just mean you're going to be bad and then you're going to keep being bad.
I completely understand your take. I think it makes a ton of sense if we were talking about the Miami Dolphins, which no shade to your team, the Miami Dolphins. But
Fins up.
we're talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I will counter with the examples you brought up. The Cleveland Browns. Think of the organization, that organization versus Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Massive difference.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
Think of the Cowboys and Pittsburgh. Organization, massive difference. Who wants to be the head coach for Jerry Jones? No one.
True.
A bunch of people have been, Lincoln Riley, Deion Sanders, among many other names, have been like, oh, he's going to be the next head coach of the Cowboys. None of them want to do it because no one wants to be the head coach for Jerry Jones. And then in your Tennessee example, they also have a ton of questions about their organization head versus, I mean, they're building a new stadium next to their stadium for no damn reason.
Yeah.
Like, the stadium is fine. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. But in Pittsburgh, my counter of like, oh, you don't know if the coach is going to be good. Well, precedent says for them, they're going to be good.
Yeah.
They have 4 head coaches ever. Mike Tomlin has coached for a long time there. Before then, their previous head coached for a long time, won Super Bowls. Like, if any spot is like of an organization and with the Rooneys and they're running, like, they're going to pick a guy. And they're also going to be in the spot to get a guy because that is a awesome, that's a top tier job in the NFL, is to be the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers because of the organization and their structure and their stability, and then the winningness. Like, this is a team that has won the most Super Bowls ever at 6. So that would be my pushback to Cleveland and the Cowboys. Yeah, the Cowboys were great in the 90s, but since then with Jerry Jones, it's been head coaches have never been the voices that they've been, so why would a good head coach want to go there? Like, when it worked with Jimmy Johnson, with a good head coach with a voice, it worked. They won Super Bowls, but since then it hasn't. And I would just say, like, Pittsburgh is not going to hire a Freddie Kitchens, or they're never going to appoint a Freddie Kitchens. They're going to get a good coach, and it's going to be a coach that's going to work out. And so that's why for me I would send Mike Tomlin on his way, or I would have tanked the season. And who knows? Maybe, and I'll get into the actual team now. Maybe they actually will be that bad.
Yeah, now we can start talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers and not just Coach Tomlin.
And maybe they actually will be bad enough to get a high draft pick. Aaron Rodgers comes in. Arthur Smith is still the offensive coordinator. And Aaron's familiar with this system. He thinks it's going to be a healthy relationship, as he said on the Pat McAfee show. Arthur's dad, Fred Smith, passed away last week. Fred was the CEO of FedEx, and Arthur Smith his father was a big part of his life. So there's not to bring up like a death to like be a story, but it is a story. Like, and for the relationship of a new Super Bowl winning quarterback to come into a team, and his offensive coordinator is like dealing with this. it's an issue. Like it's going to be something that might hold them back. The way Rodgers spoke on the McAfee show, it felt like that he is looking at this season as being a bridge, a mentor, and it doesn't necessarily feel like he was talking like it was like, oh, we're going to win a ton of games.
Yeah.
The way he spoke, it was his goals this season was to leave behind a legacy, to leave behind like a positive mentorship, a positive view of his life. And then he said, quoted multiple times, disappear off the face of the earth. His goal is to retire and then no one ever see his face ever again, except for like once a year.
I believe that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is his goal. The big family matters story of the offseason was also he got married.
Yep.
So that's why he was not signing with Pittsburgh for a long time. But offensively, DK Metcalf comes in and replaces George Pickens. You'll have Jalen Warren be the running back. They lost Najee Harris as well this offseason. They lose the two quarterbacks in Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. Rodgers spoke highly of Freiermuth and Darnell Washington, which I would speak highly as well. Caleb Johnson from Iowa is going to come in. He's probably going to be the second back.
Yeah.
More than likely, and get many carries because this is going to be a team that's going to have to run the football.
Darnell Washington he's like the 6'9" guy from Georgia.
6'8".
He's huge, athletic freak.
Way bigger in person, too, when he was here in Starkville. That guy is tall. He scored a touchdown against the Bulldogs as well in that game. Defensively, Cameron Hayward is there again for another year. T.J. Watt will be there. Alex Highsmith, Darius Slay, Micah Fitzpatrick. Offensive line is going to be a question.
Jack's boy, Derek Harmon on the defensive line.
I'm a big Derek Harmon fan, yeah. I like
Oregon guy, right?
Mhm.
You had to watch his tape?
I did, yeah.
No,
it was fun to watch, too. He's a dog, and it was the story
You're thinking
with
of the Toledo guy.
Is that who I'm thinking of?
Yes.
I did not like Alexander
That's what it was.
Gray or whatever his name was. But I did watch the Derek Harmon tape, and I liked him a lot. The story with his mom was really sad. Very heartwarming at the same time, though, where she was in a coma, and he basically went to the hospital right after to tell her that he got drafted. And then she, I believe, passed away the next morning or shortly after. So a guy that will be very easy to root for.
Yeah. It's going to be he's got really good opportunities to play along that defensive line with Cameron Hayward, TJ Watt. That could be a good defensive line for sure. The only issue Cameron Hayward is this is year 14 for him.
Yep.
So a little bit up there in age. But other than that, Darius Slay, this is year probably 11 for him. He's probably a 2014 in there. I think he was just before Dak, so he's getting up in there. But yeah, this could be a really interesting year. And then they've got a lot of, just looking at all the gold on this depth chart, they've got a lot of new guys on the defense, which could be.
We calling that gold?
That orange?
Orange.
Sorry, orange.
No, you good. I'm just giving you a hard time.
So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, Steelers. It's going to be right off the bat. It's going to be awesome. Week 1, Aaron Rodgers returns to New York to play the Jets. Must see TV. At 1 p.m. kickoff on CBS. He will go and play the Vikings out in London. Week 4, which will be an interesting game. He gets to play the NFC North, which I'm really excited for. A lot of Green Bay Packers memories and a lot of pictures of that will obviously be there.
Imagine he just hoses the NFC North one more time. Just like goes, 4-0 beats the Packers too, but
I wouldn't put it past him.
Part of my prediction for the Steelers, which I'll get into.
okay.
They'll play Thursday night against the Bengals in Cincinnati. Then the following week on Sunday Night Football, they'll play the Packers, which I cannot wait for. That's going to be an excellent game. The first time he'll get to play his former team, because the Jets did play in Lambeau his first year in New York, but he popped his Achilles on the third play of the game for New York. So it's going to be a fun year. They're going to be on TV a ton. Obviously, they have Aaron Rodgers, but they're also the Steelers, the brand, as I talked about earlier. I expect, again, Aaron Rodgers to be good against the NFC North. I have him beating Green Bay, beating Chicago, and then losing to Detroit and Minnesota. But specifically, I think the Green Bay game is like a must-win for him. If this is his last season, like, go out there and beat your former team. That'd be pretty sick. I wonder if that would put him on the list with Brady of a guy who has beat every team in the NFL. I would assume so, but I don't know for sure. And then I expect him to win in Chicago. Like, he dominates the Bears. He's 24-5 versus the Bears in his career. And I expect him to beat Chicago week 12 as well. It's going to be an interesting season for Pittsburgh. Obviously, we talked a ton about the coaching situation, but how do y'all feel about Pittsburgh, the team? I know Sanders is really low on them.
Yeah.
So Sanders, if you want to talk about why you're so low on the Steelers, go ahead.
I'm just very low on this roster. There's not really any part of this team that I like other than maybe defensive line. Secondary, your best cornerback is probably Darius Slay. And he's older. It's just, and then at wide receiver, I don't understand the Steelers. The Steelers had the opportunity to empty the roster and tank and start. Where did he go? Will Howard. Thank you. They start Will Howard and just have a bad season, and instead they went all in halfway. And that just didn't really make sense to me. I don't like this wide receiver core. You've got a 33-year-old Robert Woods. You got Calvin Austin as your wide receiver 3 in the slot. I think this is one of the least talented teams in the NFL. And it might be that them and the Browns are the 2 least talented teams in the NFL. There may be a couple other options up there, but they're definitely bottom. They're definitely in the bottom quarter of the NFL. So I'm not a huge fan of that. I've got them going 5-12, which so far we've done the NFC North, now the AFC North. That'd be the second worst schedule, or the second worst record behind the Browns, who I've got going 4-13, I believe. I've got them opening with a win at the New York Jets, and then losing to Seattle, losing at New England, losing to Minnesota, beating Cleveland, because like I said, I don't like that Cleveland roster either. Losing at Cincinnati, losing to Green Bay, taking Indianapolis and beating them at home, and then at the road against the Chargers, who I like, beating Cincinnati at home. That's going to be, I think, that's going to be a pretty big upset when that comes along, just because of how high I am on Cincinnati versus how I feel about Pittsburgh. But I don't like the schedule. I think they got a pretty tough schedule. Because I still think, playing against having the Ravens in your division is tough, because the Ravens are going to be very good. Playing the NFC North is tough, because like we talked on Wednesday, the NFC North is going to be very good. And then were they the second place team in their division last year? Is that right?
Yes.
So they kind of hurt themselves because they had to play this. Is that right? Because they played the second place from
3 other divisions.
Yeah. So it kind of is an unfortunate thing where, because of the way the NFL scheduling works, wherever you finish in your division, you play your respective team that finished that same place in 3 other divisions. So they're playing the Colts, right?
Those 3 teams are the Colts, the Chargers, and the Seahawks. So it's not necessarily as bad as it would think.
It's
not great.
I have them losing 2 of those games. I've got them losing to Seattle and losing to the Chargers.
Sure.
So I don't have the faith in Aaron Rodgers. I think he had a better team in New York and was not able to do that much with it. I think he had more talent around him on that offense in New York than he does here in Pittsburgh, and was not able to find success with it.
I think it's a better team, more dysfunctional organization, though, talking about that.
That's fair.
There's a lot of issues there behind the scenes. Some, in my opinion, self-inflicted by Aaron Rodgers.
True.
But I think the Steelers are an organization that won't let that happen as much.
That is one of the crazy things about the Steelers, is how well they, like, you're talking about the organization, just how well they keep things together with Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell. Like, it's one of those things where if those guys had been on another roster with a different quarterback, how different would their careers gone? George Pickens was a guy who, coming into the NFL, there were a lot of concerns about his character, and they were able to keep him under control for the most part. He never was like this, he never lived quite up to the talent that people were hoping he could perform up to, but it's just insane how well they're able to kind of control the team and the roster and that franchise. So, yeah, I don't see this season going well for them. But,
I'm hitting that magical 9-8 mark they love. They find ways to do it again and again. I agree they don't have the most talented roster, but they've found a way to have winning seasons without talented rosters before. They like winning the games they should win, and then finding a way to steal a couple.
Here's a question. Talking about Mike Tomlin. If the Steelers go in that 4-13 to 6-11 range and get like a top 10 draft pick, does bringing in that quarterback, do the Steelers keep Tomlin because he's been so successful without a quarterback, and they say, well, you had a really bad year with a horrible roster, now we've got our quarterback, let's keep you around because we know you are a good coach? Or does the bad year just end it for him?
For one, I don't think the roster is as bad as you are saying, but I wouldn't. A bad year doesn't end it for him because I think he's more likely to get fired finishing 8-9 than he is to finish 5-12, because you can just wrap it up to Aaron Rodgers wasn't good enough this year for us, and that's more than likely what would take place for them to finish 5-12. So I wouldn't fire him. I would keep him and then draft your quarterback and go from there. But I think it's way more likely 9-8, 8-9 he gets fired. Not that firing might not even be on the table, but there is a chance with the fan base like that the discord gets so high that like they have no choice.
Yeah.
Because that fan base is a passionate fan base. They are one of the most traveling fan bases in the country to go along with the Packers. And I mean, we remember how ugly it got with Matt Canada. So it very easily could get to the same spot with Mike Tomlin if his team is not good. I don't think Steelers fans are going to take out their anger on Aaron Rodgers because they saw the last season from Aaron Rodgers and they know that's the Aaron Rodgers we're getting. And it's not like they were expecting great things from Aaron. And then you go and look at, well, who brought in Aaron Rodgers? The front office, Mike Tomlin, specifically Mike Tomlin, as well as the front office. Like, now your anger I think it tilts to them. I think it's more likely it tilts to them than it does to Aaron Rodgers. I just don't see a world where Aaron Rodgers is a scapegoat unless he is terrible. Like, he throws more interceptions than he has touchdowns this season, which I don't expect because I expect him to run the ball a lot, so he just won't put the ball in harm's way. It's just... I wouldn't fire him at 5-12. I'd go and select a quarterback and bring him back. But if they were 8-9, 9-8, he may be pushed out of the building because it's another mediocre season, and now you get to go select Carson Beck at pick 22, and who knows, they could pass up on Carson Beck for no reason.
I would,
and maybe you say Will Howard is going to be the quarterback next season. It's just. I feel icky about it. It sucks because this organization is just, for whatever reason, is okay with mediocrity. And they think they're in a different league than they are. Making the postseason all of these years is not an accomplishment in the NFL. Winning games in the postseason is. And they don't do that. They have not done that in a very long time. So the Mike Tomlin is for me, it's the story of the season more than it is Aaron Rodgers. Are they going to fire this guy? Or I'm really curious, is the fan base going to turn on Mike Tomlin? Which is, like you asked that question 5 years ago, you'd say no way because of what he's done for the organization.
Yeah.
And what the team has done under him and winning a Super Bowl. But I think it's on the table. And I would not be surprised if it happens if we get the fire Tomlin chance in the crowd, that like we got with Fire Canada for Matt Canada. So it's again another for me 9-8 again another season of mediocrity for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They like I said earlier, they become a Super Bowl or bust team on a roster that's not good enough to win a Super Bowl. But I still think the roster is better than y'all are saying.
Yeah.
I don't think it's terrible, but
I have
I
T.J. Watt after all.
True.
That makes any roster good.
The offensive skill position units leave a lot to be desired.